Thank you for tuning in to MacroView Television and welcome to a brand new edition of Taiwan Outlook, the program that presents the different faces and lets you hear the different voices on Taiwan. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. On today's program, we're delighted to have Dr. Harvey Hong, who's currently an advisor of the Environmental Protection Administration of the Executive Yuan of the Republic of China, to talk about issues related to environmental protection and also management waste. Thank you, Dr. Hong, for being a special guest on our program today.
Dr. Wu, thank you, and I'm very happy to come back here. I just came back from Geneva, attending the Basel Convention.
All right. That will be the topic that we want to talk about, Dr. Hong.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. From the time of May 5th, I believe, all the way to May 14th, in Geneva, Switzerland, there were a number of meetings related to three conventions. One is Basel Convention, the other one is Rotterdam Convention, and the third one is Stockholm Convention. They're all related to environmental protection issues and also management of waste. And you are representative from Taiwan to these meetings at the different conventions. Can you tell us a little bit first, what is the relationship between the three conventions, Basel, Rotterdam, and also Stockholm?
Yes, actually, all these three conventions, they were originally separated. Stockholm Convention is trying to prohibit and restrict the use and the manufacture of some persistent organic pollutants.
Okay.
And the Rotterdam Convention is specifically for the agricultural chemical usage for importing, exporting, and so forth.
All right.
And the Basel Convention is focused on the transboundary movements of hazardous waste.
Okay.
However, all three of them has the same focus in trying to protect the human health and the environment.
Okay.
So starting 2013, which is 2 years ago, they decided that they're going to have a joint convention together. So starting 2 years ago, they have the three conventions
simultaneously?
held. Yes, and because there are some
overlapping issues?
Yes, common issues that they will need to have the experts from different areas to stay in the same room for discussions.
Good. And you mentioned earlier at the beginning of the program that you were a participant primarily at the Basel Convention. Can you tell us a little bit about Basel Convention, BC, in the sense of when was it started, who were the major contracting parties to the convention?
Basel Convention started in 1989 and enacted in 1992.
Okay.
The main purpose of the Basel Convention, that's an international treaty designated to control the international, or we call transboundary movements of hazardous waste, especially for those developed countries. They are shipping the hazardous waste from the developed countries to the less developed countries.
Okay.
And also to help or assist these less developed countries to develop their own treatment facilities and the disposal ways for they call it environmentally sound management of all these hazardous waste. In other words, try to eliminate the adverse effects from all these hazardous waste to our environment and the human health.
Okay. Who are the major contracting party to the convention?
Yes, right now we have 182 countries plus European Union.
Okay.
So right now we have altogether 183 members.
Okay, and so apparently EU has not signed the treaties.
It has, but it joined the Basel Convention as a group.
Oh, okay, as a block.
Yeah,
okay.
As a block.
All right, and what are some of the major principles that Basel Convention would like the contracting parties to follow?
Yes, there's mainly 4 purposes here under Basel Convention. The first one is trying to reduce the generation of waste, of course, specifically for hazardous waste. And then secondly, they're trying to limit the treatment and the disposal of the hazardous locally. In other words, they do not like to see all this waste being moved from one area into the other. And especially that has been happening for the last couple of years, that they're using these less developed countries as their dump site. So, this is not a very healthy or very good idea for treating all these hazardous waste.
Simply is wrong.
Right. And the third, of course, is trying to prohibit or to limit the transboundary movements of these hazardous waste. And the fourth is trying to help these countries where they are needed to develop a sound management of their waste.
All right. And Dr. Hong, I have two questions. First, what is the definition of hazardous waste according to Basel Convention? And what are the different ways that the Basel Convention would like to see the waste being managed under the convention for the different contracting parties?
The definition of the hazardous waste under Basel Convention, they have a list of they have a list of hazardous waste.
All right.
And
primarily from industrial production?
Well, it has a list of the waste, and all these waste, either they are containing like heavy metals, the
chemicals,
highly toxic chemicals, or either they have a kind of characteristics like explosive, corrosive, or toxic. With these toxic characteristics, they will be considered as hazardous waste. And also under the Basel Convention, if any countries consider this is hazardous waste, then it's hazardous waste, and it's not supposed to be.
You don't have a universal standard.
They do. But plus, if this if this is not listed under the Basel list, but still considered as hazardous waste by any individual countries. If there is a movement involved with these specific countries, of course, it will be also considered as hazardous waste.
Okay, and you were saying, my question number two was that you were saying that the Basel Convention will oppose, transboundary movement of the, industrial waste or electronic waste or whatever. But what are the ways that the, Basel Convention will encourage will ask the contracting parties or countries to follow?
Okay, actually, the Basel Convention is not to prohibit the transboundary movements.
Discourage, I would suppose.
Well, not actually, because, for instance, if there's a waste generated from some areas, and in the highly developed countries, they can use this material as a raw material and retract, like the precious metals, or this kind of valuable stuff from this waste. Then the movement is allowed.
All right.
So under the Basel Convention, they're encouraging the countries where they have the kind of capacity and the technologies to handle this waste to help the other countries, and they were allowed between countries to sign the bilateral agreements for any movements of
but
this
the
waste.
agreement, of course, will have to be in consistency with the Basel Convention provision.
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
Let me ask you this. We know Basel Convention puts a heavy emphasis on monitoring and control. And suppose some contracting parties violate the convention. What are some of the enforcement measures that the Basel Convention can apply?
For instance, the United States, because of their own consideration, of their own waste.
All right.
They are not a signatory party of the Basel Convention because they are afraid that if they sign the convention, the protocol, they may be, criticized.
Okay.
So up to today, the United States, such a great nation, is still not, the signatory party of the Basel Convention. So over there, if you sign it, you are supposed to observe it. To observe it. Otherwise, in the convention, you see people criticizing it. And this time, when I was attending the convention, I have also noticed that even the general household waste. I hate to name the name of the country, but it's a highly developed country in the world now.
Yes.
And they are still shipping their waste all the way from their countries to Philippines.
Okay.
And been observed, and there was some discussion over there.
Okay.
Even it's a general waste, but that seems to be a big issue no matter where you go.
All right, but how about the enforcement? Do they impose fines?
They do not.
Okay.
They do not.
So the countries...
Not that I know of.
All right, but the countries to the convention can just disobey the convention, and there isn't anything the convention can do about it.
Not
You
that I
haven't
know
heard
of.
anything?
No,
All right.
no.
Good. We need to take the first break on our program. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second part of today's program here on Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Ray Guo. We will continue our conversation with Dr. Harvey Hong, who's currently an advisor of the Environmental Protection Administration of the Executive Yuan of the Republic of China. Dr. Hong will talk about the three different conventions in the first part of the program. Basically the Basel Convention, the Rotterdam Convention, and Stockholm Convention. Primarily this time when you were in Geneva, you were going to meetings at the Basel Convention. So let me ask you a little bit, what was the conference theme this year for Basel Convention in 2015? Please.
Actually, from what I've seen, this time in Geneva, of course, they have been always focusing, how to prevent the transboundary movement of the hazardous waste.
Okay.
But this year, when I was there, they spent a lot of time in defining the electronic waste.
Okay. E-waste.
The e-waste. And also, they have a lot of discussion on how to prohibit people from illegally transboundary or trafficking the electronic waste from one place to the other.
Okay.
The most difficult issue there is that how people can define what is the used components and which one is end of life of computer.
Oh, okay.
People, they can tell you that, well, look, this is an iPhone, and it's usable.
All right.
Okay, but maybe in America, the iPhone, the first generation, even the second, third generation is not considered as a usable product.
Okay.
But, they can tell you, and they wanted to dispose of it. And, it's still functioning very well.
Of course.
They can tell you that, I'm going to ship it to somewhere in the world for reuse.
Okay.
But they